Hey everyone, welcome back to the Woodland Reboot. It's Peter here at the Reboot inside my shop. Shop I built pretty much by myself, but with some help from some friends and family. A shop that now allows me to do a whole bunch of great projects on the inside. Fantastic heating system. Check out the video link above for that. When it's minus 10 Celsius outside. The project I want to get on with now is something dealing with these 4 oak boards sitting here in front of me. Now these boards here, I cut a red oak tree down, my goodness, 5 years ago now, 4.5 years ago, milled it up, and this wood has been air drying since that time. I've got a very affordable little moisture reader here. I'm going red oak, so we're going to go here on this little table. Red oak, so it's group 2. So I'm looking for the red light. There it is, group 2. And let's see what the moisture content is here. 8.5. What is it? Is it between 6 and 8, or is it between 6 and 9% moisture content that you can... 7.6. Between 6 and 8, I think it is. To do furniture. That's going to go flying off. 7. So, you know what? I'm going to take this as a win. 7. This stuff's been air drying for a very long time. Like I said, possibly up to 4 years. Pretty good job air drying inside this shed, my barn, my shop here for a year and 3 years at another property. So the idea here is to build a tabletop with this wood, and I purchased myself a set of metal legs to be revealed in a future video linked to this build process. I got those, as you can see, from a place called Fractal Designs. Fractal Design right there. So the first step with these boards is to start to cut them to length. Not to the exact length, but a rough length that then allows me to work with them. I've got to put an edge on them and plane them, and then obviously get them to the correct thickness before I get to the glue up. So let's start with that process. Hi everyone, it's Peter here at the Woodland Reboot, here in my shop. I want to remind everybody, I am not a professional woodworker. I have some skills, like a lot of you guys out there have some skills, and I enjoy my woodworking. I have a lot of fun with it. So, take what you like, leave what you don't enjoy, keep the comments clean. Okay, let's get on with today's project. So I've decided I'm going to use these 3 boards, and I've decided to remove that one from consideration. This board here is anywhere from 2 to 3 millimeters narrower or thinner than these 3 boards. So to get those 3 boards down to that thickness, once that's been planed, is going to require a lot of wood removal. Not keen on doing that. This one also has, I think that's the pith right down the middle there. So that's the dead center of the log. I'd like to try to go with a table width somewhere between 30 and 31, maybe 32 inches. Right now I have, 31 3/4. So I've got about 1 1/4 inch max of wood that I can remove from the edges, etc., to make these straight and still end up in that 31 width dimension for the table. And in terms of the length, it's going to be a table in what we call our breakfast nook area at home. And so I want to do, I think, maximum 54 inches. So I'll probably cut these to 56, 57 inches. But I've got a lot to play with here. See, I'm not even at the end of the board here. There's 57 inches, and if you look down at the end of the tape there, it's 1.5 feet. So I've got a lot of wood to play with in terms of length. Now, on this one right here, got a hole. What is that, 5.5 inches there, 5 inches? You stick that in to that hole, and it's disappeared. You can see the discoloration going up to here. So I'm thinking on this one, I might cut the board along here, removing that knot, and then deal, with a cut obviously somewhere down here. Take some measurements to see if that's viable before I end up cutting the board too short. So in terms of the general dimensions, again, I want to be about 31 wide and maybe 54 long length with this table when I'm said and done. So like I said, I'm going to cut these boards a little bit long, a little bit wide, leave them wide before I head and put them through the edger and the thickness planer. So first cut for this project is going to be with this board here. Again, it's got the hole probably somewhere in there. What I'm going to do is square it up down at this far end here. Let's stick it out the end so I can get room to work on it. And I'll bring you guys down to that end as well. Let's make our line here at this end to get it somewhat square. Does everybody have their eye and ear protection handy? Let's put it on. Let's make the first cut for this project. Inch-and-a-half oak is making this blade work. Boy, that's more dust than I expected. Might have to put my respirator on for this. Some really nice looking end grain there. All right, let's not get too excited about that. We got a lot of work to do before we end up with a finished kitchen nook table. So I've decided to throw on what I call, a little bit of a smock. Keeps the dust off of the clothes I want to wear for the rest of the day. I'm also going to put on a respirator. If you guys value your lungs, if you do a lot of woodworking, and I'm going to do more and more woodworking, I'm going to wear that respirator. So hopefully I'm not doing too much talking with that on, but I'm going to throw that on. So it was the first board that I cut that had that bug hole in it. The last board that I just trimmed out, 57 inches, boom, bug hole. So there were a few bugs in this oak. There's where it comes out, obviously. So I'll probably fill that with some epoxy when I go to the final stages of the project. But there are the three boards. This one, I don't know if you can see it there, it comes along and then bends quite a bit. I'm wondering if I might cut this board lengthwise right along there. Take this fourth board. I think I'm going to cut it to length and set it aside. The four boards are all cut to 57 inches in length, but as I was mentioning, I've got a bit of a wonky situation going on with a couple boards. So as you can see here, I've got a line right there. I'm going to rip that or cut that lengthwise, get rid of this where it starts to bend, as you can see. And it also, I don't have to deal with that bug hole there. And then on this board over here, this is the fourth one, I'm going to take that part of this board and get rid of this part. So there's my line right there, pith is right there, cut that out. And, I'm going to have to deal with the thickness issue, which this is the narrowest board of all of them. Okay, so here are the four rough cut boards. I was looking for a minimum of 31 inches to work with, 32 inches. Right now, actually I was looking for a minimum of 30. I've got 31 inches here to play with, and of course the length is 57. So I've got an inch. I'm probably going to end up being bang on what I want. Between 30 and 31 inches. So the width is good. And then 57 long, and I can cut that down. All right, there's phase one. Phase two, I'm going to start edging and hit the thickness planer with these ones as well. So I want to show you something here that's a bit of a trick or a hack, I guess you would say. Just some good solid woodworking knowledge. That when you run boards through an edger or over an edger, you can see I've got some marks up here. I've got the boards numbered in order, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I've gone through my selection process, and you know, I've got, see, this board and a similar width board on the outside as an example of just some of the selection I've gone through. Now you'll see I've got an arrow here and I've got fence, and the next edge that's going to be joined to this one, I've got the arrow down. So that means that when I run it through the edger, the fence is going to be on this side for this board, and it's going to be on this side. This face is going to be up against the edger on this side, and that just in case my edger is not perfectly 90 degrees to the table, then by flipping the faces, you then cancel out, like if it's 89 and 89, that 1 degree difference will be at in the different direction on each face, and therefore canceling it out. Hope that made sense. And that's the justification for running the faces on the joints opposite sides of the board through the edger. Perfect. Take a look at this wood here. Hope you can hear me okay. But this is the result. Running it over the edge. You're just absolutely, see it's rough on here. You can see the chatter from the saw blade. And just absolutely perfect. And flat. From there to there, perfectly flat. The boards are all edged. There's a great seam in between them. This is the center seam. Just got it pulled apart right now. I think when I'm going to glue them up, I'm going to glue them up in pairs. So I'm going to glue these two up, glue those two up. But before I do that, I'm going to run the boards through the thickness planer. Now, of the 4 boards, this one here is the skinniest. I'm going to run that through and literally try to take off as little as possible so I don't have to take off too much from the other 3 boards. Between passes, you'll see me adjust the machine. Lock is right here, so I loosen the lock, and then I usually do a quarter turn. A quarter turn removes a 64th of an inch. Quite minimal, and I like to do it minimal. If you try to take off too much at a time, you get a lot of checking. I'm having a good look at the board here. I want to see how smooth it's coming out of the thickness planer. This thickness planer has really done well for me. However, it has only 1 speed, and with these hardwoods, I think I need something that has adjustable speeds or multiple speeds. Do that again. We've got to zero out. 1.25 inches. 1.25 inches, shy under 1.25 inches. 5 inches, a little wider. So that dimension and there it's the same, and it tapers a bit coming down here. And I'm going to stop there because once I get this all glued up, there's going to be additional work to address the surface. So there's going to be more material that's going to come off. Right now we're going to stop there. So that's 1.25 inches. I want to get the thickness of the other pieces to 1.25 inches. Let's see what we can do. Okay, let's take some thickness measurements of the board here. We're looking for 1.25 inches. Bingo, bango, bongo. 1.25 inches. This board's done. We'll go put it on the pile. Something new here in the shop. The Dewalt thickness planer. I think this is a Dewalt. It's either a 725 or a 735. This is a fantastic machine. I finished up the tabletop pieces with this planer. So what I'm going to do right now is start to mark up the spots for where I'm going to put, this is a biscuit joiner, so where I'm going to put those cuts. And I've already got it lined up here in the two middle pieces. 1, 2, 3, and there's the fourth board, which sits here. I'm going to continue marking up where I want to do these cuts. I bought this Ryobi Biscuit Joiner probably back in around 2000. You can see what it does. Puts a nice slot into the wood where you line it up. Sometimes there's a little bit of cleanup to do, a little bit of tear out on this end, the way the blade turns in there. That's easy to do. All of those are done. I'm going to break out the biscuits and glue. And I think I'm going to do the glue up on that surface over there. So I'm going to get busy. I'm going to clean that off, and then we'll start gluing them up. I think I'm going to do it up in 2 sections. What I'll do first is that I'll glue these 2 larger boards together at once, let them dry, and then I'll put on these 2 outside pieces. I've got the 2 middle boards over here on this workbench. I'm going to move the gluing process from this area over to here. As I mentioned, I want to get these 2 middle boards done and glued up together first. Glue ups. Not rocket science, but they can go wrong. Okay, I've got my 2 pieces of my red oak all ready to go here. We'll get the glue onto the 2 edges and get the biscuits in. I've got these number 20 biscuits made by Diablo. Look like this, go into the slot like that. First, we've got to get some glue slathered on there. I looked for some little brushes this morning that I could use to spread out the glue. Couldn't find them. So I'm going to go with the tongue depressor instead. should work. You don't want to put on too much glue, like that section right there. I've got a little bit too much glue in here, but we'll work it around. 5 biscuits. And then we're going to put some glue in the slots on the other side as well, so that the biscuits can get a little soaked in that glue. And the idea is that these biscuits soak up the glue, expand a little bit, and help fill the joints that way. Put a little bit of glue on this other face over here, just to help with the bonding process. I'm under the heat of my radiant tube heater, so it's a great place to do a glue up like this, even though it's cold outside. It's nice and warm inside the shop here. Okay, let's get these two sides married up with each other. I like that. Things are looking good here. All right, let's bring these back blocks up a little closer. I'm going to start to draw some C-clamps that I'm going to put over the ends. Keep these aligned as well, joints. I don't mind that I'm putting these directly onto the wood, because it's all going to get sanded. You want to start to see the glue coming out of the joint. And then we're going to put a couple of clamps across the top just to create force in the other direction. So it keeps it flat. That's been my experience with these. I'm just going to put 2 on the top. Don't want that sticking out all the way there. I'm not checking for level. What I'm doing here is I'm just checking to see that the boards are flat, and indeed we've got a flat glue up here. That's perfect. Now I'll clean off a little bit of that surface glue. It just makes the sanding easier later on. Worry about the other side when it's dried and we get it out of the clamp. We'll use a chisel to shave it off. So there's the seam right in there where my finger is. And it is quite, there's a little bit of a ridge there and quite smooth. There's some of the glue, you can see it. So that's 4 on the bottom, 2 on the top. That should be more than enough. And then some C-clamps at the ends of the joints to, again, make sure that the boards are gluing up nice and plumb and flush with each other. It's been clamped up for over an hour now, well beyond what is recommended on the glue manufacturer's instructions. And I turned up the heat inside the shop. I think I'm at about 58 Fahrenheit. Someone let me know what that is in Celsius. That's a great temperature for the glue to do its work. The wood is also nice and warm. The reason why I'm saying that is because I do not run the heat inside the shop at a high level overnight. I put it down to about 40. Okay, I'm going to catch up with everybody in a few minutes. I'm going to get these clamps and the board set up for the next glue to get those extra 2 boards into this panel. What I'll do is put you guys on time lapse and catch up with you after I get it all glued up. All the clamps are in place. Got the C clamps at the end to make the ends line up, of course. 6 clamps across, and I like how flat the panel itself is coming out. The only little glitch on this joint right here, I don't know if you can see that, but I've got a bit of a rise there, unfortunately. So that's going to be the sanding challenge, is to get that out. But the key thing is that it is flat. That's a perfect joint. That one's coming out quite nice. Nice through here, through there. Again, lip. It's consistent all the way down. I suspect that this board, I didn't get the thickness planing correct on that one, so it's a little proud. So that's going quite well. I'm pleased with the way this is turning out, and look forward to getting those out of the clamps and on to the next phase, which, yeah, it'll be to get that out and to start the sanding process, knock some of those edges down. Now, having said that, you know, I've got that new Festool Sander. Actually, you may not know that I've got the Festool Sander. I've only got these grits for my Festool, so I'm going to have to go out and get, I think I need an 80 and a step in between. So 80, maybe 120, 140, somewhere in there, and then I've got it up to 320. And walking through those grades on the sanding should create a beautiful, beautiful smooth surface. And then for the finishing process after that. But that's a process I've outlined there broadly. Could take another week to get this done. Got the radio playing on the phone in the background here, a little sports news. I think it's the story of the demise of Sports Illustrated, something I grew up reading. Turn that off, and we can take clamps off of here. loose. I just loosened that before I turned the camera on. Some cleanup to do there, some repair work to do here, here, some knots, some repair work to do like I said. Probably going to put, well, it's going to be epoxy in the bigger ones, and I think I'm going to go with this brown color here that I have. I think that'll go well with the color of the wood. And I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but there is a line here, and way down at this end there's another line here. Those are the dimensions, that's the length of the table, so cutting off there and cutting the excess off there give us a total length of 50, and right now it is 30 wide. And in terms of the size, this is exactly the same width, and at 50 inches it's going to be, I think, a ½ inch longer than the current table, so that's not an issue. That'll fit in there nicely. Let's see if I can give you guys a bit of a closer look. Again, there's the line. There's some work that needs to be done to improve that knot there. This one here, and a couple of little ones, like I said. And there's the cutoff line on this end. And then, as I mentioned yesterday, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I've got a bit of a lip on this seam right here. So I'm going to get myself, I think I'm going to go with some 60 grit. That will allow me to remove quite a bit of material on this end right here, get that smoothed out. And other than that, there's a tiny bit of a lip right here in this section, right here on this side. Otherwise, this joint along here is quite flush. This one's flush. Yeah, so that's looking pretty good. And then I've got to figure out how I'm going to, what I'm going to do with the edge. Am I going to put a little round over? I'll figure that out as I go along. Don't know that I've shown everybody this yet. I put this together. Came from a company, I ordered it online, called Fractal Design. But there's the pedestal leg, a metal system I bought online. It's got a powder coat finish on it. Obviously it's black. I think it's going to look nice. It's got some adjustable feet. And my alarm has gone off because I've got a phone meeting I need to attend to. So I'll catch up with you guys later. Want to clean this up a bit. Get out the rotten stuff. Sizable hole right now, but we'll tape it up on the underside, pour the epoxy in there, look fantastic when it's finished. It'll look fantastic when it's finished, trust me. We'll get there. Yeah, see that? We don't want that part of the table. Yeah, I like the way that's been cleaned out there. Nice and clean. And then this one over here, you can see right through it, but also it is not light. Okay. Making a very small batch of some epoxy. I've got a little food container that I'm using to do the mixing. 2 to 1. Gonna add the color now. That darkens it up nicely. So they say the instructions call for 3 minutes of mixing. I've got my timer on in the back, behind the camera here, and we're going to have a mixture very soon that we can pour into these holes. So there's the hole you can't see through right now because I've taped it from the underside there. Alright, fingers crossed I've got this relatively right in terms of volume. This should be more than enough to fill this cavity. Let's get in there and vibrate it a little bit. Want it to sink around and absorb into the cracks and crevices. We want to get it on the edges as well, so we'll drip some in there. On this crack right here. A little bit more. We want it to come up a little bit proud, because when this epoxy dries, it shrinks a little bit. So that looks pretty good there. Hopefully you guys can see the camera there. We're going to go to this cavity over here. Fill this one up. Whoops. There's a little one right here. And we're just going to keep moving around. Get this one up. Ooh, that seems quite big. Good to check this one that there isn't a crack on the underside that it's going through. That's probably going to settle a little bit. And we've got this one over here. Right down that line. Take a quick look on the underside here. I'm going to pull this out a bit. There's nothing coming through that one right there, which is the one I have my concern. In fact, you want to know what? Just in case, I'm going to throw some tape on what's going on here. So there were no leaks overnight, but the material continued to seep into the voids overnight. You can see that's about a 1/4 inch down. That one goes through. It's taped on the other side. And then here's the big one. That's also down about a 1/4 inch. And so it has seeped through. So I'll top those up, and again, it's going to take another day for that to dry. It's a tiny one. We'll let some of that dribble off there. Now, I'm not sure that that is sunk to the bottom of that little hole, so I've got a little old nail here that I can just use to poke and, you know, just encourage the epoxy to drizzle down into that hole. I think I've got it there. I have hopefully what is the final little mix of this epoxy in this color. And as you can see, I've got the panel vertical. I've hit it with the level to make sure that it's plumb, and so that when I pour into the 2 or 3 voids that I have on this edge, it's not going to run out the side. And I think it's pretty straightforward. I don't think there's any taping required on either of these 3, so fingers crossed this works. You want to put your epoxy so it's a little bit proud when you pour it. I purchased a tool that's going to make a huge difference with the way I'm finishing my projects. Festool, a lot of you guys out there obviously recognize the carrying case, and this is the ETS or the ETC. Let me see the front of the box here. It's the ETS EC155. Now you can get the 153, and this is the 155. I've been using it a little bit already, and it is a fantastic tool. This is a great tool. This is going to really up my ability to finish projects with a quality finish to them. Comes with a few sanding pads in the kit. I want to try 80 grit with my Festool Sander here on my tabletop glue up. It'll allow me to see how it works. The 80 grit works with the epoxy filling that I did, as well as you can see here, I've got a bit of a ridge here in the panel that I glued up. is all smooth up till about right there. Right there, the lip continues. I've been working on this section down here, essentially this entire area, and you can see that's going to look fantastic when that gets polished out, but that's where the epoxy is there. Some epoxy there and epoxy there. I'd like to try these bigger ones now and see how that works out, but yep, that's worked very well. And I did this edge here. That's really feeling quite nice. Okay, let's keep going. This looks really nice. Coming along quite well. And again, amazing tool. Amazing, amazing tool. First sanding with 80 grit. It feels fantastic, but I'm going all the way up to 320, probably in increments of about 50. That's the epoxy there. It's nice and smooth now. It needs to be polished up, but already looking fantastic. Nice edges. Got to figure out how to do these rounded corners, though. Going to be a challenge. That's the underside sanded to 80 grit. I'm quite pleased with this. Now this is a large epoxy patch. Again, this is the underside. Now this is smooth, and there's a really nice corner there. From this side, when it's flipped around top side, you just see a little sliver of that. I had a little mishap, an error with my thickness planer when working on this board here. It ended up with a bit of a gouge. I've been able to repair it here with this patch, and I'll explain it, I think, in a future video in terms of more detail with what went wrong. That's the bottom side, nice and smooth. I think it's a great way to salvage this oak that's fantastic, and so I'll be able to use it and put it to good use with that patch. I decided to round the corners using my jigsaw. You can see the marks that I've made. I used, I think, a roll of tape to make those lines on the edge, on the corners of this oak table. At the end of the day, we just need to soften these corners. If you catch your hip on this type of a corner, it's going to hurt. So hence the decision to grab the jigsaw and put these cuts in. All four corners are now rounded. And over here. Now I'm going to sand the daylights out of them. Much improved. The key in that exercise, you've got to keep that sander moving. If you stop, it'll create a flat spot. So much better than the jigsaw. Look at that. Nice rounded corner. So I've done a little bit of reading in terms of how to finish oak during my break. And it recommends that you only sand it up to a maximum of 180 grit. If you go beyond that, you risk sealing or polishing the wood to the point where it won't accept the finish that you want to apply to it. Hope that made some sense. So what I'm going to do is maximum sand up to 180 grit, and my next one that I'm going to hit the underside with is 120. I'm going to do it up to 150 on the underside, and I will go to 180 on the top side. I also dampened the surface to get the grain to rise a little bit between sandings. This helps to get an even better finish. Time to flip this tabletop and start sanding the top. I'm going to come back and do the edges later. I'm going to take the router and put a little chamfered edge around the top here. This is the top surface, so it's going to have a little chamfer around the edge. So that's the chamfer I put on there, little 45-degree angle. I think, I wasn't planning on it, but I'm going to put the same, maybe a little bit less on the bottom, but similar. I've decided to treat and finish the tabletop with a natural oil product by a company called, well, I'm not sure if the product is called Kunos or if the company is called Kunos, but there it is. Have a look there. Maybe if I can just do a, it's actually, it looks like the company's name is Livos, and the product is Kunos. So again, that's the product I'm using. It is for kitchen surfaces, so it apparently adds a little bit more protection than a normal natural oil product. So I'm going to give that a try and see how it turns out. Finish with the underside. I'm now going to tackle the top. And again, this is the first. There's going to be some buffing, and then the next coat will go on. I do 3 applications, but I'm just going to show you this one here, this first coat on the top. I've taken some old rags from home and I'm repurposing them as oil applicators here. And you can see that the oil goes on very easily. I use gloves also. I see some YouTubers, social influencers doing this without gloves. That's their choice. It does require a little bit of cleanup afterwards. Anyways, this goes on almost effortlessly. Really soaks it up. This first coat just disappears almost. With the table upside down, I lined up the legs. Again, these legs are from Fractal Design. I ordered the legs online, and I'll include the link either in the description or here in the video. I used a drill guide to make sure I was very precise with the holes for the inserts. This is a Milescraft drill guide and it works really well. I did a test fit with the legs, everything checked out, and then I disassembled it, packed it in the car, and took off for home. Once home, I reassembled the table, and then checked it for level in every direction. These are the legs from Fractal Design. Again, order these online. Great finish. You can see there, right there, is one epoxy repair. There's another epoxy repair. I like the color, I like the way the grains show. And it fits nicely here in the Banquette. It replaces a table that is essentially the same size, I think. And there you can see that chamfered edge right there. And most importantly, the wife is pleased. I think she was a little bit skeptical when I started the project, and I think she's impressed now that it's done and it's in place and that we've been using it, and it's nice and sturdy. The legs have adjustable feet. I don't know if you can see them down there. As I twist upside down. Some adjustable feet so that if your floor is a little uneven, you can adjust that with those legs. Those feet, I should say. So there it is, everyone. Table is finished and installed. And with little time and effort, if you've got the space and some tools, you can probably put together a table like this as well. Thank you for watching. This has been a very long video. I decided to put it all together into one instead of making it a 2 or 3 part series. And let me know what you think. If it's too long, too much detail, too boring. Take care, and remember to subscribe, like, and share. Thanks.